Assembly Bill 2821 by Assembly Member David Chu and others, enact relating to housing.
Mr. Chu, you are recognized.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. AB 2821 would establish the Medi-Cal housing program to shift the paradigm of how our state serves our homeless through an opportunity created by the recent federal approval of our state's 1115 Medi-Cal waiver. We all know it's far less expensive to put a roof over the head of a homeless person and provide supportive services rather than allow that person to remain homeless, exposed to the elements, cut off from community and family ties and regular health care, cycling in and out of emergency rooms and hospitals. The recent Medi-Cal waiver included the Whole Person Care Pilot Program, which for the first time allows federal funds to be used for wraparound services. Our bill would provide one-time state funding to provide for rental assistance for chronically homeless Medi-Cal recipients. Our bill requires counties to compare the Medi-Cal cost of individuals in this pilot when they were homeless versus when they're housed in supportive housings so that we can show the cost savings and how we ought to be taking care of our homeless communities. I respectfully ask for your aye vote.
Ms. Waldron, you are recognized.
Thank you, Madam Speaker and members. AB 2821 is a cost-effective approach to addressing a problem impacting almost every community in California, homelessness. Homeless people are admitted to hospitals more frequently, use emergency departments disproportionately, and stay hospitalized longer than housed people with the same conditions. Providing housing and services will reduce Medi-Cal costs over the long term and allow our partners to serve this population more effectively. I urge an aye vote.
Seeing and hearing no further discussion or debate, Mr. Chu, you are recognized.
I very much want to thank the comments of our colleague from Escondido, as well as for the bipartisan support through the process, and ask for your aye vote.
The clerk will open the roll. All those vote who desire to vote. All those vote who desire to vote. All those vote who desire to vote. The clerk will close the roll and tally the votes. Ayes 45, noes 3. The measure passes. File item 98, AB 2822 Chu. The clerk will read.
Assembly Bill 2822 by Assembly Member David Chu and others, enact relating to student financial aid.
Mr. Chu, you are recognized.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. This bill seeks to provide emergency aid to our community college students by providing authority to our community colleges to use student success and support program funds for small grants for those students who face an unexpected financial emergency situation that would force them to drop out of school. Students are still finding themselves without the resources they need to stay in school for basic needs such as housing, food, or childcare, with 80% of a community college student's cost of attending college due to living expenses. For these students, just one unexpected financial emergency can derail their goals. Since the current financial system isn't flexible enough to respond to an urgent crisis, emergency aid programs have emerged across the country as an effective means for colleges to improve student retention and to lower dropout rates. A recent review of these programs showed that 95% of students who receive emergency financial aid finish their term. This bill will help California college students pursue their dreams, as well as allow us to reduce our dropout rates. And with that, I respectfully ask for your aye vote.
Seeing and hearing no discussion on the item, the clerk will open the roll. All those vote who desire to vote. All those vote who desire to vote. All those vote who desire to vote. The clerk will close the roll and tally the votes. Ayes 41, noes 18. The measure passes. Passing temporarily on file items 99 and 100. File item 101, AB 2895, Hernandez. The clerk will read.
Assembly Bill 2895 by Assembly Member Roger Hernandez, enact relating to employment safety.
Mr. Hernandez, you are recognized.
Madam Speaker and members, this bill will ensure that workers in California have access to important workplace safety information. In the winter, my Labor Committee convened a hearing exploring the high rate of workplace fatalities and injuries of Latino workers. That hearing made clear that many workers lack even a basic understanding of workplace health and safety issues. Under current law, employers are already required to establish written injury and illness prevention plans. All this bill does is ensure workers are provided with access to this important information. It is my hope that we will enable workers to be aware of some of these issues, their protections, and the employer's processes and procedures for dealing with workplace safety issues. We have taken several amendments to address opposition concerns, and we will continue to work with the opposition as this bill moves to the Senate. I respectfully ask for an aye vote.
Seeing and hearing no discussion on the item, the clerk will open the roll. All those vote who desire to vote. 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 Mr. Hernandez, what's your pleasure?
Move the call. Move the call.
Mr. Hernandez moves the call. File item 102, AB 1550, Gomez. The clerk will read.
Assembly Bill 1550 by Assemblymember Gomez, an act relating to greenhouse gases.
Assemblymember Gomez, you are recognized.
Speaker and members, today I'm presenting Assembly Bill 1550, which builds on the success of our climate equity efforts to date by ensuring a greater investment in California's environmentally and socially economic disadvantaged populations. AB 1550 requires at least 25% of the cap-and-trade funds to be spent on projects located directly within disadvantaged communities, and an additional 20% of the funds to benefit low-income households and communities, regardless of whether they lie inside or outside of what the state qualifies as a disadvantaged community. If we wish to foster a shared statewide commitment to tackling pressing environmental issues, we must take advantage of opportunities to reduce greenhouse gas emissions and build sustainable communities while lifting poor and working Californians out of poverty, no matter where they live. This bill is supported by a large, diverse coalition of groups, including the Rural County Representatives of California, the Alameda County Board of Supervisors, as well as the California Environmental Justice Alliance. I thank you, and I ask for an aye vote.
Mr. Gallagher, you are recognized.
Yes, Madam Speaker, members, thank you. I rise in support of this bill. I think it's a good measure that will help ensure that all communities benefit from monies that are available through AB 32 cap and trade, and targets all disadvantaged communities throughout the state. Some of the programs that have come before sort of have the effect of not getting to some of the rural communities in my district, for example, in Northern California, and I think in many rural districts throughout California are not eligible or not able to access some of those funds that would help their communities. So this is a good measure. I think this helps recognize, as I've said many times on this floor, that we need to look at all parts of California, not just certain parts of California. And this is a good measure. I appreciate my colleagues' work on this to really ensure that that's the case. Thank you.
Mr. Gordon, you are recognized.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. We've struggled at times to figure out what is the best definition of a disadvantaged communities. And there have been a series of efforts to look at CalEnviroscreen, other definitions. I think that many of us feel that we need a better definition of a disadvantaged community. And I appreciate the work that the author is doing in helping us move in that direction. The Bay Area Caucus has had some particular concerns, and appreciate the fact that the author is willing to work with us and have conversations moving forward. So I want to thank the author and recommend an aye vote.
Mr. Salas, you are recognized.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I reluctantly rise in opposition. I usually don't speak on the floor, but this is a bill that says let's increase the amount to disadvantaged communities. In fact, I had a bill that did that last year. It got stuck in appropriations, never made it off of suspense. But what this bill would do, really what we got to ask ourselves is, where are our priorities? Are we going to let our most disadvantaged, highly polluted areas continue to not get the resources that they need? Are we diluting these funds so much that they are now going to be ineffective? Members, we should have a priority list. We should do it by the most disadvantaged, environmentally burdened communities and start working our way through that list. If we're to be true to our word about making sure that communities that are affected the most, that have the most pollution, get the most resources so that we can actually have an effect on GHG and air pollution, then we should do that. I respectfully ask for a no vote.
Mr. Garcia, you're recognized.
Thank you, Madam Speaker and members. I want to just thank the author for bringing this bill forward, and I also would like to acknowledge the comments made by our colleague from Bakersfield. I think that he makes some very important points as it relates to the definition of disadvantaged communities, in particular when it comes to the rural counties. The fact is that I believe that this bill will expand to communities that currently are not within the CalEnviro screen, which will make many of our communities far more competitive than they are today to access some of these GGRF funds. And so that's why I'm supporting the bill. But I think the author also recognizes that there is much work to be done when it comes to definitions of rural communities, definitions related to density and populations in our rural communities. And I think he also recognizes that there is a need to take a look at the Strategic Growth Council's criteria when it comes to the grant applications. Therefore, making sure that every single community that is disadvantaged or meets those requirements, irrespective of not being in the CalEnviro screen, can compete and ultimately see those investments go to parts of California that see high levels of unemployment, high levels of poverty, high levels of pollution, and that when these investments are made in these particular parts of California, that we begin to see the co-benefits of an economic insurgence in order to get people out of the circumstances that they find themselves in. So I want to just commend the author for his effort. I hope that our colleague who is opposing the bill will work collectively with us to make sure that we can address the concerns that he's raised, because I too have those concerns. But today I'm going to support this bill. So thank you, Madam Speaker, and thank you again.
Ms. Brown, you are recognized.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I rise to speak on this issue, not for or against at this point, but to give an experience of what has happened in the 47th Assembly District. The Enviro Screen says that our district is one of the worst for pollution in the state. Yet, we get very few, if any, of the funds from greenhouse, from CARB. I really think that we need to go back to this drawing board and see what we should be doing. When we had 1.0, Enviro Screen 1.0, we were in there. All of the most impacted communities were in there. But then they did 2.0, and it was spread out a little bit more. I don't know if they've gotten a 3.0 yet or not, but the money is being diffused, and those communities that have the need are not getting the resources that they need. I'll lay off of this time, but I really believe that we need to have a strategy that's going to help all communities that are impacted succeed.
Mr. Hadley, you're recognized.
Thank you, Madam Speaker and members. I rise in opposition to this bill, and I think it's important to remember how we got to where we got here today. AB 32 was passed by this chamber to reduce greenhouse gas emissions. That was the whole reason for AB 32 being passed in the first place. And then, subsequent to the passage of AB 32, cap and trade became a revenue source without a vote ever by this chamber, by the way. Without a vote by the legislature, cap and trade became a revenue source as the auction program ramped up. And then finally, this chamber has allocated greenhouse gas reduction funds in various ways, one but only one of which has been to reduce greenhouse gas emissions. Now, there are obviously the opportunities for significant co-benefits from these funds, which include particulate pollution reduction, which includes obviously economic development and job creation, which is most important in our most disadvantaged communities. But the whole reason that this program exists, both prior to and after it becoming a revenue source, is for greenhouse gas reductions. And we have to keep our eye on the ball, because particularly for those of you who are following the auctions of carbon credits that yielded $10 million this month, when $500 million was forecast prior to the auctions, we are going to have to be very disciplined about prioritizing how we spend greenhouse gas reduction funds to actually reduce carbon. So, for example, we spend 25% of these funds on high-speed rail, which will not ever reduce greenhouse gases, certainly will not reduce it for decades, and we are continuing to chip away at this revenue source for reasons other than greenhouse gas emissions. So I vote for more discipline, spending the money for the purposes for which the money was intended, and voting no on this bill.
Mr. Alejo, you are recognized.
Madam Speaker, very briefly, there's no reason to hold off on this bill or to oppose this bill. In fact, the comments made by my colleague, my good friend from Bakersfield, actually support why we should all be voting aye on this bill today. One of our greatest responsibilities is trying to solve the most challenging problems facing our state. I'm glad that my colleague from Los Angeles has done that from the beginning with this bill. When we look back at seeing where resources are going under these GGRF funds, and you're seeing that a lot of economically disadvantaged communities are not benefiting, even though they were intended to be beneficiaries of that 25% EnviroScreen, but somehow, somewhere under that formula, they have not received a single dime or very little. It's incumbent upon us to come back and relook at other ways of how we can make sure that those resources are going to the communities that it was intended to reach, to deal with the pollution and increase the standard of living for some of our poorest families in those respective communities. With that, I respectfully ask for an aye vote.
Seeing and hearing no further discussion or debate, Mr. Gomez, would you like to close?
Thank you so much. I greatly appreciate the comments. The Cap and Trade Program and the GGRF Fund have been in place for a number of years, and we had numerous allocations. And one of the things we discussed in the Democratic caucus is how do we make the funds more equitable? How do we spread them out throughout the entire state? Not only for the reason that everybody, as some of my Republican colleagues, as some of the moderate colleagues point out, everybody bears the burden of any of these regulations, as well as the burden of pollution and the burden of climate change. Yes, this bill focuses first and foremost on the fact that you have to reduce greenhouse gas emissions and then co-benefits. That doesn't change under this bill. But what it does is make sure that it is more equitable in where it's getting invested. You know, I'm implementing this bill or trying to pass this bill not because it's going to get more dollars into my district, is that it's going to be more equitable for every single member in this chamber, be it from Riverside, be it from Yolo up north, be it a Republican district, be it in a district of a Democratic member who doesn't even support AB 32. My goal is not to pick and choose, but to get more resources to the folks that need it the most, the ones that are most impacted by climate change and have the least resources do it. You know, my colleague from Bakersfield has misinterpreted the bill. The reason why is because he has some of the most polluted and some of the most low-income individuals in the entire state. He actually gets more census tracts added to his district, not less. And when you're basically saying an additional 20%, it doesn't mean 20% from that 25% or going to disadvantaged communities. It's an addition. So this is going to make them better off, not worse off. And that's why the rural counties representatives are in support of this bill. That is why the Central Valley group, such as the Fresno Economic Opportunities Commission and the Valley Clean Air Coalition, are in support. Because this actually benefits the valley and every part of the state. It's not about just a zero-sum game, you get more and I get less. It's that I am my brother's keepers no matter where they live in the state. And I think that we need to put the interests of our people and the state in front of the interest of your own constituents at times and in front of your own politics. I ask for an aye vote.
The clerk will open the roll. All those vote who desire to vote. 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 The clerk will close the roll and tally the votes. Ayes 45, no 16. The measure passes. File item 103, AB 1561, Garcia. The clerk will read.
Assembly Bill 1561 by Assembly Member Christina Garcia and others, and relating to taxation to take effect immediately. Tax levy.
Ms. Garcia, you are recognized.
Members, Madam Speaker, should California be in the business of taxing women for their biology, for simply being born women? AB 1561 answers the question by saying no. It eliminates the tax on menstrual products, specifically tampons, pads, sponges, and cups. Every month, for 40 years of our lives, we are taxed for being born women. Every month of our adult life, we are taxed for our biology. Every month, we are told our periods are luxuries, while at the same time, we are being told that we should be ashamed of them and we should hide them. Let me be clear. Periods are not a luxury, and our biology is definitely not something we should be ashamed of. Our sales tax code is a reflection of what we value. We value motion pictures and candy over women's health. It's time we value women's health and stop taxing menstrual products. If we can't make these products free, then we at least need to make them more affordable and accessible. Every month, poor and homeless women have a hard time accessing tampons and pads. When you're trying to figure out how to get by every day with under $5 a day, every penny counts. I hear stories of girls missing school, homeless women using newspapers. A young girl told me she uses socks because she can't miss school. She knows that education is her pathway out of poverty. In this moment, we need to ask ourselves if we, the state of California, should continue to tax women on essential health items, or if we, the state of California, should help remove all barriers to these essentials. The answer I've heard from both men and women, from both sides of the aisle, from across the country, is that we need to end this tax. As a society advances, our laws should also. Our tax code needs to reflect the fact that it's no longer okay to tax women for being born women, or to shame them for a part of our biology. Let me be clear, we're not talking about blue liquid here. This monthly flow is not something that we can ignore or wish away. Trust me, most of us wish we could. The money from these taxes should remain in the hands of our mothers, our sisters, and our daughters, period. I respectfully ask that you join me in sending a message that in California we value and respect all aspects of women's health.
Ms. Chang, you are recognized.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Members, the fact is our current tax on feminine hygiene products is an unjust tax. It is a tax on women not for some luxury item, but for a basic health need. By imposing this tax, we are putting up an unnecessary barrier to a necessary health product. The absence of this kind of product can lead to serious health issues, so this is about women's health. This is a personal matter for women, so it is not always an easy topic to discuss publicly, but the issue is real. Enduring a day at work or school without these products is not an option for women. This bill is also about tax relief. Collectively, we pay $20 million in taxes on feminine hygiene needs. This bill will put that money back in the hands of women and create greater access to a very important health product, especially in low-income and homeless populations. I am aware of no other product on the market that is such an essential health need for one gender and still has the burden of a tax. The one health necessity exclusive only to women is still taxed. On principle, that should end. And we are not the only ones debating this issue. Countries across the world are debating whether or not it makes sense to tax women in this way. Our neighbors to the north in Canada already scrapped the tax. Here in the U.S., it has to be repealed state by state, and that is exactly what's happening. This past week, we witnessed New York repeal the tax on a very bipartisan basis. In fact, 15 states have introduced legislation to repeal the tax on feminine hygiene products, from Utah, Mississippi to Illinois. As a woman and a taxpayer advocate, I am proud to jointly author this with my esteemed colleague from Bell Gardens. Nothing has quite brought together the idea of tax relief and women's equality like this bill. Members, this bill has a number of co-authors from both sides of the aisle, as well as a broad coalition of support. So please join us in supporting AB 1561 today.
Mr. Gibson, you are recognized.
Thank you very much, Madam Speaker and members. I rise to support Assembly Bill 1561 and stand proudly as a co-author of this common sense measure. It is estimated that women spend over $20 million on tampons and related health products. In my district, when I talked about this particular bill, certainly the women there felt relieved that this is a discussion that is being taken place on this floor. I want to also bring to my colleagues' attention, our state has a number of sales tax exemption or exclusions of products such as candy, snacks, plants, fertilizer, and other items, goes on and on, but nothing around this particular issue, exempting women tampons. I think this is a health issue. I think it's a good measure. I want to thank the gentlewoman from Bell Gardens for bringing this good, sensible measure before us today, and I respectfully ask that the men join me in supporting Assembly Bill 1561.
Seeing and hearing no further debate, Ms. Garcia, would you like to close?
I want to thank my colleague from Diamond Bar, Compton, and all of our co-authors for standing up for women across California and sending a message. We introduced this bill in January, and we've been leading the way and hopefully setting history here, not just on removing this tax, but a discussion of access and a discussion about our women's health, and there's nothing to be ashamed of. I respectfully ask for an aye vote.
The clerk will open the roll. All those vote who desire to vote. All those vote who desire to vote. All those vote who desire to vote. The clerk will close the roll and tally the votes. Ayes 68, no 0. The measure passes. File item 104, AB 1583, Santiago. The clerk will read.
Assembly Bill 1583 by Assemblymember Santiago and others, and act relating to post-secondary education.
Members, quiet in the chamber, please. Mr. Santiago, you're recognized.
Thank you, Madam Speaker and members. AB 1583 would strengthen California's Community College Board governor's fee waiver by reducing the amount of the financial need a student has from the current number of $1,100 to $1. So if you have $1 need, you would receive the BOG waiver if you met the financial need. Members, I respect for an aye vote.
Seeing and hearing no discussion on the item, the clerk will open the roll. All those vote who desire to vote. All those vote who desire to vote. All those vote who desire to vote. The clerk will close the roll, tally the votes. Ayes 45, noes 19. The measure passes. File item 105, AB 1585, Alejo. The clerk will read.
Assembly Bill 1585 by Assemblymember Alejo and others, an act relating to water resources, making an appropriation therefore, declaring the urgency thereof, to take effect immediately.
Members, we're going to pass temporarily on file item 105, and take a 1-hour recess. Members, you are advised to remain in the building. We will return back to session promptly at 3:30.